In the Florin Kingdom Shake Mansion's annex, a girl stands in her balcony and thinks to herself if she is not getting fed today either. Her stomach growls and she tells herself that she is so hungry. She goes out and realizes that starving is a common occurrence for her. There are only a few people who know about this place, and even those who know do not like to come here, because as an illegitimate child, this is her prison. Since she is the shame of this family, no one looks after her, and she lost the ability to speak after her mother passed away. Although father would visit every 6 months, sometimes it was only once a year. Something like her should never have been born at all. A vile and disgraceful thing. The only reason he is keeping her alive is for Che. If she had no other use, he would have just killed her. The woman kisses a bird and tells herself that if she did not need to pretend to be her sister, someone like her, she lets go of the bird as she tells herself that would have been discarded long ago. Would her life have been better if she was not mute? Maids barge in and she asks herself what is going on. Normally, only one person comes by to give her food. They are not even bothering with an explanation. Where are they taking her now? Something bad must have happened at the mansion. The mute girl thinks to herself it cannot be. Please, she hopes it is not what she is thinking right now. The father approaches her father and asks herself, "Father." So father called for her. He asked for her. The father turns and gives her a glare saying, "Faye." Faye trembles as she realizes at the moment she sees his expression. That day has finally arrived. The father tells her the soldiers of the Empire are closing in. She knows what she must do. Yes? Faye looks down and tells herself that she knows very well. The reason she was imprisoned for 20 years was so that she could act as her sister's body double in situations like this. However, the father hands her a sword and tells her before she is caught by the Imperial Army, she must kill herself. Make sure to stab the heart. Prove to him that she is actually useful. Faye's heart trembles and she stutters while saying "Father." A woman yells out "Father." The father yells out "Che." They both look at each other in shock. The father tells her this is the only way she can escape being pursued. There is no other way she can survive this. Che flinches and says "but." The father grabs her and tells her there is no time to waste, they need to get going now. Che looks back saying "Faye." As Faye is walking to her death, she thinks to herself that her older sisters stand and she knew she was not anything more to him beyond that. She knew far too well. But she wanted to be loved too. Even pity would have been fine. What she wanted was just the tiniest shred of affection. The scene cuts to Faye falling asleep and she hears people talking. The guards say that it seems they have hit the jackpot finding a girl in a place like this. Should they have some fun? The other soldier says it will not end with just a light punishment if they are found. Sir. The guard tells him to not worry about it. The commander will probably leave after looking around the main building. He will never come all the way over here. It will not take long. As the man reaches for her, Faye says, "Someone please help." Before she are caught by the Imperial Army, she must kill herself. Make sure to stab the heart. Faye tells herself all the pain, the sorrows in her life, none of it matter anymore. It will just take a moment. If she keeps chanting that special spell, it will be over before she knows it. A voice is heard saying Mommy loves her very much. Faye, Mommy, loves her. She pats her head and says Faye, Mommy loves her very much. Faye, as they both hug. Mommy loves you. Faye. Bunch of pigeons walk in and start attacking the guards. The guard yells out what is going on. The other guard says this is bad. Sir, they should go. They are going to get caught. A slash is heard. The man says His Excellency. This is. He dare disobey his orders? Is he prepared for his punishment? The soldier says please forgive me, Your Excellency. The man slices his head off and turns his head to look at Faye trembling. He turns and leaves. Faye says no, she does not want to be left alone anymore. Faye grabs the man's robe and says please take her with him. 10 years ago, in order to take down the Plut Empire, which ruled over the others with an iron fist, 10 kingdoms gathered together and made an alliance. However, the one that prevailed at the end of that long war was the Plut Empire. The empire punished all the kingdoms that took part in the alliance, and it was the lion of the battlefield, Max Warren, who spearheaded that discipline. In the Florin Kingdom Shake Mansion, the blonde man says how dull. Another guy says even a dog tries to protect its home when attacked by the thief. But every single person here has run away. A noble without any pride or honor is no different from a beast. The man behind him smells something and says my liege. He smells blood. They walk into a room where both a woman and a man was stabbed in the chest. The blonde thinks to himself that they are not even knights, yet they stab themselves right in the heart. They are obviously body doubles. The blonde says this is starting to get ridiculous. He turns and tells them to add the Viscount to the list of those that need to be pursued. The man says yes, my liege. The scene cuts to a pretty garden and the black hair guy says these are flowers that are hard to find in the empire. It is wasted on these cowards. The The blonde guy's heart starts throbbing and the black hair guy says this scent is getting stronger the more they go inside. The smell is getting worse the further they get from the main building. Is it not usually the other way around? They spot bunch of birds flapping. The blonde thinks how curious. Indeed it is. The blonde guy tells himself that the birds of different species are flocking together. It is quite interesting to see. He smirks and says what could be in there that is causing them to gather like this. The man jumps off a tree and enters the balcony. He was confused but then heard the soldier yelling out what is going on. The other soldier says this is bad, sir. They should go. The blonde gets pissed off. He grabs his sword and the soldier screams they should really run for it. They are going to get caught. The soldier gets cut off by being stabbed. And the blonde says they dare disobey his orders? Are they prepared for their punishment? The soldier startled and gets sliced by the blonde guy's sword. The black hair guy says he will take care of the rest. My liege, he should wait outside. The blonde guy tells him to throw these bastards in front of the gates so that all who pass by can spit and step on them. The man says as you wish, my liege. Faye stutters and grabs the blonde guy. He turns and sees her quivering and clenching. The man tells himself that normally, he would have broken her hands for touching him. Faye says please no. Do not leave her here. She does not want to be alone anymore. Faye goes on and hugs the man. The black hair guard was shocked and tells himself that he would need to clean up another corpse at this rate. He says that he will take care of that girl. The blonde says no. Wait. He asks himself if she is slow-witted. If she had any semblance of intellect she would know by now that he is the enemy. That reminds him the Viscount's daughter has not been found yet. The man gets close and grabs her. He thinks to himself if they abandon her because she is mentally ill? Or is she a stand-in? The blonde man notices her trying to speak. She is trying to say please take her with him. The man is startled. The scene cuts to the King of Florin's bedroom, where she is sleeping on his lap. The blonde sighs and notices her clinging to him. He asks himself if did he really come all the way here to this bedroom, while letting this girl dangle off of him? The black hair guy asks what does he plan on doing with her? The blonde says who knows. Once a war ends, nobles are kept from their families, while soldiers are kept from the kingdom, all in order to receive a ransom. However, since the kingdom has been conquered, the prisoners are more of a bother than anything else. If that is how it is for nobles, then the fate of this useless girl has practically been decided already. The black hair guy says he knows that giving them no attention at all is better than doing it half-heartedly. If he does not mind, shall he take care of her, my liege? The liege looks at him and asks what was he thinking. The black hair replies by saying he is not in the position where he has to care for someone, and he feels bad for that poor thing. The blonde asks if he feels bad for her. Carl Jaden is infamous. He is the captain of the Warhammer Imperial Knights, known for bashing in the heads of his enemies with an iron mace, as well as being a panther beastman that specializes in assassination. Such a man is saying he pities someone? The blonde thinks to himself that his face shows no such emotion at all for her, despite that being his proclaimed reason. Rather than feeling compassion for the child, it is more likely he is. The blonde gazes at him, and Carl looks away nervously. The blonde thinks to himself if he really trying to hide his feelings in front of him? What in the world is he up to? The blonde grabs his sword and tells him to speak. If he does not answer him properly, he will beat him within an inch of his life. Carl flinches and says you see, there is a nice smell coming from her. The blonde says what? Carl asks if he cannot smell it. My liege? The blonde asks is there something? Carl says yes, the nice scent. The blonde was startled and says it seems he has finally lost his mind. Carl says what? The blonde thinks to himself a pleasant smell? All he can make out is the musty smell of dirt and the tangy odor of blood. Carl leans in and blonde says he is forbidden from approaching this girl. Carl in total shock says what? My liege? The blonde thinks to himself that it is not unusual to grant a loyal subordinate a slave during wartime, but he has outlawed plundering of the places they conquer. Even if he is his right-hand man, he cannot allow him to have a slave that comes from a result of looting. The blonde gets pissed off and says that if he does not shut up and get lost, he will make sure he cannot walk for a few days. Carl gets startled and leaves. The blonde calls out a butler and says you there? The butler says he called. Your Excellency? The blonde tells him to take this girl to the prison. Silence erupts and he says never mind. The butler was confused and says pardon? The blonde says it is nothing, he may leave. The butler says understood. Please have a pleasant rest of his night. His Excellency. The blonde thinks to himself that she is clinging on to him even though he is the reason her life has been ruined. It is pathetic yet pitiful at the same time. The blonde brushes her hair, and Faye rolls on him, nuzzling on him. The blonde smiles and takes off his coat, saying this is all just a continuation of his earlier whim. The blonde picks Faye up, and tells himself it is a foul way to act, since she does not plan on keeping around. The blonde gets really close to her face but then raises his head up, and sleeps beside her. He takes a glance at her, thinking to himself that he has made it to this point because ending the war was his only goal for the last 9 years. And it has been a long time since he slept beside a woman. Her first time seeing blood was when he was around 17 years old. It was a very hot summer day. He took his clothes off because he was afraid the smell of sweat would soak into them, but what he found instead was blood. He did not know what it was at first. It was only after he wiped his damp thighs did she realize that it was blood. She wanted to know what was happening to her, but there was no one she could ask. What should she do? Faye wobbles and says the blood will not stop flowing. She must have caught a fatal illness. Faye takes a glance and says that it was a coincidence that she met her half-sister that day. The sister saw Faye sobbing and the scene cuts to her sobbing. The sister tells her to not cry. It is unnatural for all women. She does not have to be afraid. Faye says that was the first and last time she spoke to Che. So why did she look back at her like that when she left? Che. Faye says she does not want to wake up. Faye opens wide. The blonde says she is awake. Faye thinks to herself this man is. She is sure he is the one that. Faye quivers in fear. And the blonde grabs her hand, saying that now that she is up, answer his question. Does she know where the Viscount is going? Faye shakes her head and says she does not know where they're headed, but she would not have been able to tell him anyway. She does not want father to suffer. He might have abandoned her, but she knew it was going to happen one day. That has always been the plan after all. The blonde says as he thought. She is of no use to him at all. Faye says she truly is a useless person to everyone. She knows all too well what happens next. This man will abandon her and lock her up somewhere. The blonde steps away and Faye thinks to herself that is how a pointless person must live until a use is found for them. The blonde wears his robe and Faye thinks to herself that but how long has it been since somebody talked to her? Faye looks at him and says no one has ever tried talking to her. The blonde tells them to take her to the prison area. She knows he only did so to ask father's destination, but that does not change the fact that he also helped her. She should thank him, should she not? Faye smiles and says thank you. The blonde guy was left stunned, and a messenger quivers while saying a message has arrived from His Majesty. Carl grabs it and gives it to the blonde. He thinks to himself and says it seems the reward he is receiving for his 10 years of servitude in protecting the empire are a duke's title, 2,000 slaves, some gold, and a few maids from the palace. The slaves and riches were going to be his anyway, but gifting him palace maids is the same as planting a spy within his home. The blonde gets pissed off and asks if he calls this a reward. However, if the crown prince, if his highness had not given him that elixir, he would have died 9 years ago. What he received in the past was more than enough to serve as a reward. But he feels like something is not quite right. House Warren has always been part of the imperial faction, and that loyalty only depends when His Highness helped save his life. So much so that even if His Majesty were to discard them, he would have accepted it without hesitation. However, if it is revealed that he was given such measly benefits for all his years of service, it would shake the imperial supporters to their course. It seems he needs to speak with His Majesty once he returns. The blonde tells them to please tell the emperor that he will visit him after he is done with the Florin Kingdom. The messenger was confused and asks, is that all he needs to say to His Majesty? The blonde says yes. The messenger asks if he is certain. Your Excellency? The blonde asks if there is a problem with that. The messenger says not at all. He will take his leave now. The blonde says he will be provided with a place to rest. Have a good night. The messenger says he hopes he has a pleasant night as well. Your Excellency. The door shuts and the blonde sighs and leans back. He thinks to himself that the girl he brought from the Sheikh mansion. She thanked him, did she not? He may have saved her from a bad situation, but she was in that predicament because of him. How could she thank the very person who caused all this? The blonde chuckles and says what a fool. Not only is she mute, it seems she also has mental issues. Well, it does not matter to him whether she dies or not. He is sure there is not any valuable information that empty head of hers could offer him. Carl says, my liege, about the girl from yesterday. The blonde says that he has been showing too much interest in her. Has his taste in women taken a strange turn? Carl says it is nothing like that. He really does want to take care of her out of the goodness of his heart. The blonde says he thinks not. That would make sense if he were always such a nosy busybody. But he knows for certain that he does not offer help to someone just because he pities or is concerned about them. He is sure he has hidden intention. He plans to take her away and devour her. Carl yells out that he would never do that. The blonde tells him to stop fixating on her. He is sure he will forget everything in a few days. If a grown man starts associating with a mentally unwell child, people will start talking about him. Carl gets sad and says he is not certain because it is his first time seeing one. But that girl, he thinks she might be descended from elves. It is not really well known, but beastmen are able to smell the unique scent that elves have. The blonde thinks to himself, an elf? Elves being who are able to hear the sound of nature and have the ability to communicate with animals. They were known for their beautiful appearances, but fled to the Forbidden Land to escape being hunted by humans. Then the reason why all those birds acted strangely, was it due to her elf blood? It is impossible to find someone with even a quarter of elf heritage. If she has even the slightest bit of it, then taking her in would not be a total waste. The blonde smirks, and thinks to himself, well, even if she is not descended from elves, he is sure he will find a use for her. He should go retrieve her. The blonde raises up, and in the prison Faye tells herself that she is an idiot. The view of that man's back looked just like father's when he left. She stupidly held out hope that he would come back for her. She should not have such thoughts. She did not ask to be born, but still her existence was a sin. Faye calls out her mother, and the mother says Faye and pats her. Faye says she was little better than shackles that tied mother down, and she was nothing more than eyesore to her father's family. Abandonment was always meant to be her fate. What will happen to her now? It will hurt a lot when she dies, will it not? Faye sniffles and says no, it might be better to die quickly. Her life will not improve no matter how much time passes. The blonde tells her to raise her hand. Faye, eyes wide open, she says that voice. The blonde tells her to get up. Faye is confused and asks herself why is he. She wobbles and wakes up. The blonde glares at Faye and tells her to follow him. Faye tells herself that he said she was useless. Maybe he is mistaking her for someone else. The blonde stops and tells her to not make him repeat himself. Come with him. Faye is shocked, and they are walking, and Faye takes a glance at him, saying she does not know what his reason is. But he came back for her. Not even father came back for her. Yet this person. Faye's heart starts beating, and she tells herself that she has already learned from experience that there is no use in hope. She will only get hurt. So why is her heart beating so fast? If he is talking to her again, and even came to get her, then maybe he has found some use for her. Faye tells herself that is right. No matter what his reasons are, he is the one who saved her. If she is going to die either way, then she wants to help this person. Faye reaches out and grabs him. The blonde turns and is confused. She squeezes him and lifts her head. Faye with a smile says thank you again. The blonde asks she is thanking him. He knows how to read lips. He can understand most of what she is saying. Faye gets all teary and says her father could not do that. He just shouted at her all the time. She has finally found someone she can talk with. The blonde says there is something he needs to ask her. Faye says yes. Please go ahead. The blonde asks if she knows how to handle animals. Faye tilts her head in confusion and says control? The blonde says he is asking if she can control them. Faye shakes her head and says no. The blonde asks himself if she does not know anything. The blonde asks does she know the reason why he took her out of prison? Faye says because he found a use for her. The blonde says yes, but since she said she cannot control animals, they will need to find something else for her. Faye clenches her clothes and says that she cannot control animals, but she also cannot speak. The blonde asks if she can write. Faye says only a little, but all she knows are a few simple words because she learned it a long time ago. The blonde asks if there is anything else she can do. Faye trembles and says being alone. As she looks down, the blonde tells himself being alone? He is sure that will not be enough. Faye says it sounds like nonsense even to her. To think that these are the only things she is capable of doing. She is so pathetic. The blonde sighs and says that they can take their time finding what she is good at. Faye is startled. She lifts her head up and asks if he really thinks there is something she can do. The blonde says whether it is an object or a person, all of them have a use no matter how worthless they may look. Faye smiles and says that she is so happy to hear that, while the blonde thinks to himself that he can make her a slave. But if he wants to use her abilities to the fullest, it would be better if she feels loyalty or a sense of belonging with him. If he really cannot find any use for her, he can always give her to Carl. The blonde says she is going to be his maid from now. Faye cheers up and says okay. The scene cuts to a bathtub, and the woman thinks to herself that she is being sent to that Marquis Warren's room. How did she manage that? There were so many rumors about him being impotent or favoring men. She did not realize he liked such young girls. The woman says hey, she is going to be his lordship's maid. Right. Faye nods, and the woman says that people like her receive money for the work she does, so she just needs to fulfill their whims. But it is different for a maid. The woman thinks to herself that though all she will be doing is sating his pleasure, the woman says that a maid must understand how her master is feeling in the moment. She needs to be coy at times. Who knows? Maybe he will grow fond of her and keep her by his side longer. Faye turns and asks really? She is already grateful enough that she can be around other people, but if she can stay by his side too? She does not know what acting coy means, but if it means she will be adored like her sister was by father, if she can stay by someone's side like that, she will do anything she can. The woman is startled and asks herself if does she want her to teach her? But it is not like she has a pretty face or a voluptuous body. Well, even if his tastes are strange, she is sure he will not be interested for long and she will be thrown away. The woman says if he was an average man just sitting on his lap and being flirtatious would have worked. But the Marquis has led an army for a long time, so he probably will not like a maid who crosses lines. The woman says it is simple. Always keep an eye on her master. Find out what he likes, what he hates, and what he needs by observing everything he does. However, do not feel anything more than loyalty for him. Make sure to keep her emotions in check. This is very useful and necessary advice, so do not forget about it, okay? Feel something other than loyalty. Faye's eyes light up and the scene cuts to the blonde checking out papers. He hears a door creak and it is Faye. The blonde holds his head and says that he told them she would be his maid, so he thought they would assign her appropriate accommodation. But it seems they misunderstood his intention. Such thoughtlessness. Faye gets close to the blonde and sits on his leg. The blonde grabs her and says he is not sure if she is just naive or a vixen pretending to be innocent. The blonde gets quiet and pushes her away and asks what is the meaning of this. Faye fidgets and says that you see. She holds her hand on her head and the blonde is confused. She pats her head and the blonde's thoughts click in. He says, does she? And reaches her head to pat it. Faye nuzzles and the blonde thinks to himself he does need her to have a favorable impression of him if he wants to use her in the future. But this is completely preposterous. He never thought she would be asked to do something like this. Perhaps it is not elf blood she inherited but a canine beastman. It would be a hassle to call for another servant right now. The blonde looks away and thinks to himself that well, if he wants to figure out her ability, he needs to observe her more. That means he should keep her around for the time being. The blonde tosses a blanket and a pillow on the floor telling her to sleep here. Faye says okay and dashes to sleep on the floor. The blonde gets flustered and asks what is she doing? He did not mean the floor. Faye has already fallen asleep and the blonde thinks to himself that she is not cautious of him at all. Is she always like this? Then again she did hug him on their first meeting. The blonde thinks to himself how strange. Has he fallen asleep so peacefully before? Perhaps it is due to the sound of that girl's breathing. The blonde says wait. She is not supposed to lift the dish like that. Use the cutlery in front of her. The blonde stays quiet but then tells her to use the napkin to wipe her mouth. Next time. Otherwise her clothes will get dirty. Faye exclaims okay. Next time she will use the napkin. The blonde thinks to himself that she is able to understand what he teaches her, but she is completely unaware of basic etiquette that any normal person living in society should know. When he gave her a change of clothes, she undressed right in front of him, and she even ate food that had dropped to the floor. Perhaps he has given himself a really troublesome task. Is she an illegitimate child? That would explain everything. The reason why she looks so similar to the girl in the portrait and her behavior. She was raised like a beast for slaughter without anyone to properly teach. She does not look like an elf, but she does seem to have their disposition. She lived in that mansion her whole life without planning to escape, just waiting for the dreadful end. She is just as gentle and foolish as the elves are. But no matter what he uses her for, if he wants her to function properly, she will need to be taught accordingly. The blonde says to Faye that this is his butler actress. She will need to be taught everything from scratch and it might be a bit tiring. The blonde turns and says to keep that in mind and have her ready by the time they return. The butler bows down and says understood, Your Excellency. The door shuts close and the butler turns and looks at the sparkle in her eyes. He thinks to himself he did not pay much attention to her because he thought she was just a plaything. But she really is a maid? He worked his whole life to become Marquis Warren's butler. Yet this girl becomes his main maid just because she was nobility from some kingdom? The butler clenches his fist and says he is sure that his lordship would want the woman he is sleeping with to be closer to him than a man like him. Even though she is a half-wit that cannot speak properly, the butler slaps her and Faye falls to the ground. The butler says how dare a prisoner from a conquered kingdom look directly into his eyes? She is punished just now because she does not know proper manners. He thinks to himself that means he can use this opportunity to cut her off before she rises to a higher position. The butler stomps at her, saying if she tries to act out or tell His Excellency that he is punishing her, she will get kicked out of here. It is important to review and revise lesson. What did he teach her yesterday? Say it. Faye flinches and the butler yells at her to speak. The butler hits her and says please punish a lowly person like her. That is what he taught her to say, is it not? Faye stays quiet. The butler says that something like her needs to be physically punished to learn properly. How is she going to serve His Excellency if she cannot even say that? The butler thinks to himself that she is a night maid in name only. All she does is stay in this empty bedroom the whole day. The butler turns and says to not forget that she is punished because she made a mistake. He will keep it a secret, so think hard about what she did wrong today. and do not rely on his lessons to help her find the answer. The door slams closed and Faye says it hurts. She is scared, but she is more scared of becoming a useless person to her master. Why is she not improving when she is trying so hard? Carl asks what is she doing. Faye flinches and looks up with teary eyes. Carl asks if she is alone. Is his liege not here? Faye thinks to herself, what is that? A tail? She grabs it and says it really is a tail. Carl says, young lady, she has no fear. It is dangerous to grab someone's tail like that. Carl kneels down and Faye is shocked at his tail. Carl asks if she has never met a beastman before. Faye asks, a beastman? Carl says a beastman is a mix of human and animal. They are stronger and faster than the average human. Carl says he is Carl Jaden, a panther beastman and a subordinate of her master. Miss, may he call her Miss Faye? Faye nods, and Carl says, Miss Faye, she is not supposed to recklessly grab a beastman's tail like that. It is a very rude act. Faye asks herself if she was being rude. Faye trembles and lets go of the tail. She asks herself what should she do? She is punished just now because she does not know proper manners. How dare a mere prisoner like her act that way? Carl reaches her and Faye closes her eyes. She is surprised. Carl holds her hand and squeezes it, and says it is the same as wooing someone. If she pulls a beastman's tail, she is telling them that they are in love with them and want to have a family together. Not even the rule of a nation can take that claim back. That means he and her are now. Someone steps on his tail and Carl screams in pain. It is the blonde asking, what was that? Wooing? Carl says, my liege. The blonde glares at him, telling him he is sure that he warned him not that long ago that she is forbidden from approaching her. Carl stands up and jumps out of the window saying, look at the time. He completely forgot that he has business to attend to now. Goodbye. Faye says, wait, they are not on the first floor, but spots him on the floor. Faye exclaims, wow, he made it that far already? Are beastmen that fast? The blonde stays quiet and asks if she finds Carl attractive. Faye asks, did he really see that? He went really far away in just a few seconds. The blonde leans and says he can do that much as well. Faye says, wait, master, are he and his subordinate mages? The blonde says no, though he guesses they are not that different compared to mages who need to write long formulas within a mana circle to cast a single spell. Swordmasters are capable of taking down a whole army in just minutes, but there is no need to tell her that. Be more wary of him from now on. Faye says, huh? The blonde says he is a pervert. Faye is confused. The blonde pats her, saying it means that he is a strange person. Faye says, okay, master, as she grins. The blonde thinks to himself that he knows he forbade him from approaching her. How dare he come see her while he was away? Is the scent coming from her that appealing? The blonde reaches her hair and smells and says he cannot smell anything other than the soap she is using, something only a beastman can smell. He wonders what it is like. The scene cuts to Faye fidgeting and fumbling while making his tie. She stares at it and the blonde grabs her hand, saying he will show it to her one more time, so watch carefully. She does it like this. Does she understand now? Faye gets sad, but the blonde tells her to try it again. The tie is sloppy, but the blonde pats her, saying this should be good enough for today. He is sure she will get better with more practice. Faye smiles and says, yes, master. The blonde thinks to himself that he told Actrium to teach her how to do her job properly, but she is still so clumsy. Yet seeing how well she does when taught, it must mean he is the problem. A thought clicks in and he thinks to himself that he must think she will take his job, but if she cannot handle behavior like that from others, then there is no point in taking her in, no matter how special her ability is. An old man chuckles, saying, so that is what happened. Carl says, exactly what part of him seems perverted? Sir, does he actually look that way too? The old man says he thinks he is right. What did he plan on doing with such a young girl? Carl says he will say this again, but he really genuinely wanted to help her out of goodwill and the purest intention. The old man says he is very funny. He is already at an age where nothing he does is done with good intention. Whether it is His Excellency taking in a young girl as his night attendant, or him whining like a child about wanting her, both of them are the same to him. Carl says she is not his soulmate. He may not believe him, but she really is just a normal maid. The old man freezes and turns, asking, a normal maid? But do they not use the same room? Carl says if she were really sharing his bed, then she would not escape unscathed, right? The old man says he guesses he is right. He is not like the average man. But is this not strange? Carl says he has worked with his lordship for over 10 years, and he has never even looked at another woman until now, but then he suddenly brings that girl into his bedroom. The old man says he has always been an indifferent man, so he is sure he is not feeling compassion for her. If he is so curious, why does he not ask him outright? Carl says he does not want to. He will obviously treat him like a pervert again if he asks him such a question. The old man says if he does not want to be treated that way, then reign in his own interest. Carl says he is his chief advisor. Cannot he convince him to remove the ban on approaching her? He listens to him most of the time, does he not? Please? The old man asks, does she interest him that much? Carl says of course. She looks like a sister he lost a long time ago. The old man says what a load of garbage. He thinks to himself, what kind of a girl is she to have both of these men acting like this? The old man thinks and grins and says Carl to let us go to His Excellency's room. Carl asks, right now? He should be in a meeting right now, so would he not be at his office? Carl, all happy, says he tempted him into it. Sir, he did nothing wrong. The old man says all right, he will cover for him if they get caught, so let us go. They open the door and both of them are astonished. The old man asks, what in the world? What is going on here? The butler says he was in the middle of educating her. She is having a hard time learning, so he needed to be strict. Carl gets pissed off and says, education? It looks like harassment. He has been bullying the girl he finds so fascinating. Carl kicks him and smirks at Faye. Carl says why is he not introducing himself properly to the chief advisor? The butler falls to the ground and Carl says he thinks he is the one who needs to be educated, especially seeing as how he does not know basic manners. The butler looks at her and turns his face saying, damn it, why does he need to be humiliated because of this wench? The butler says he is sorry. Sir. Carl grabs him and says if he tries to do something like this in the name of education, he will make sure he will never walk properly again. Now get out. The old man asks if she is all right. My child. Faye thinks to herself that being hit by a rag does not hurt that much and she is only being punished because she did wrong. But it still feels so nice to have people worry about her. The old man offers her berries and asks would she like to try some? Faye glances at the berries and then at the old man. She is hesitant and she tells herself that she knows she is supposed to bring tea and snacks to guests, but she was not taught whether or not she can eat what they give her. The old man tells her to go on. Faye thinks to herself, what should she do? The old man says they are simply some berries. It is fine, dear. Faye says she does not care anymore and eats it from the old man's hand. She says it is yummy, and it is sweet and sour at the same time. The old man says he usually carries this around as a snack, but he will let her have them for today. Did she like it? Would she like more? Faye nods and the old man thought that she would be some cunning vixen, but she is such a docile girl. Will she really be all right remaining beside Duke Warren? Carl kneels in and sniffs. The old man says, Sir Jaden, what does he think he is doing? Carl says nothing at all, sir. The old man tells himself that he thinks he understands why he was banned from being near her. The old man says things within the Florin kingdom seem to have calmed down now, so they will return home soon. As Carl walks out the door, he spots the same butler and says it is that bastard again. The butler says damn it. Carl says he is watching him while doing a gesture. Got it? Carl turns and leaves and butler says damn it all. This situation is so irritating. Of all the people to find out, why did it have to be the chief advisor and the captain of the knights? He held back when he hit her, but he will not be able to hide those wounds forever. Yeah, he has had enough fun taking his anger out on her, so he should kick that wench out now. The blonde says that is he saying that she is absolutely useless? The butler says she is so forgetful that she fails to remember what he teaches her every day. She will be more of a burden than anything else if he keeps her around. Your Excellency. The blonde stays quiet but then tells himself he wanted to see how she would react. But she is being passive even in a situation like this, as he thought she is not worth it. The best he can do is give her to Carl or use her as a bait to lure in other talented beastmen. The blonde says he was not planning on keeping her around for long regardless. Faye flinches and says what? The blonde says he will send her elsewhere once she has been somewhat educated, so try to teach her the best he can. The butler says yes, Your Excellency. Faye falls on her knees thinking that she thought she would be serving him. How stupid of her. He said that they could take their time in seeing what she could do, but he never promised to keep her as his maid forever. Faye starts tearing up saying she is a useless person to Master after all. She does not want to leave him. All she wants is to stay beside Master. However, she should not bother him by asking to let her stay. She does not want to be hated by another person, especially not him. The scene cuts to a room where Faye sobs as she realizes she knows she is not good. This was never her place to begin with. He only took her in as a maid because he thought she could be useful. But if that means being sent to someone else, then she needs to accept it. The butler says she is better than before. He does not think her training will take long. The butler smirks and says to himself that she is not perfect, but this is good enough for now. It will not be long until she is gone. He takes a glance at the door and asks himself if those two are not coming this time. He is sure everyone must be busy getting ready to go back. He wonders why they always come to see this stupid girl. He does not see what is so great about her. He really does not understand the taste of nobility. The butler glares at her, steps in and leans in saying there is no need to be afraid as he is not going to hit her, but this time he will teach her something good. The butler smirks and says who knows, maybe what she will learn right now will help her. The butler touches her neck and tells her to stay by Master's side. Faye thinks to herself saying no, stop it, and shoves him off. The butler grabs her hand and says he told her it is something good. Does she want to be thrown out by her master? The butler says good girl, now stay still. Carl says what the hell is he doing? The butler looks back saying he thought they would be busy preparing for the return home. Carl, all angry, says to answer him, what the hell does he think he is doing? The butler says he says to himself, damn, what should he say? Ah, the cutlery. The butler says their lesson today ended, so they were cleaning up the cutlery together. The butler says since they are all done with that he will take these to the kitchen. Carl says that bastard, where does he think? Carl says no, he can go after that fool later. What is important now? Carl says Miss Faye. Faye says hello Mr. Subordinate. He came late today. Carl sighs and says damn it. He asks how many times this has happened. Faye says sorry. Carl says how many times has that bastard laid hands on her like this? Faye says she was beaten from the start, so 1, 2. Carl's face shows disgust and Faye gets nervous. She asks for forgiveness as she quivers and trembles. Carl leans down and says he is not angry at her. Miss Faye. Faye says what? Carl says she did nothing wrong at all. What he is angry at. Carl clenches his fists saying this is his fault. He did not think he would try something so foolish, even after he threatened him properly. He knew how uninterested his liege could be in such matters, yet he left the situation as it was after that. It is all his fault. Faye grabs his robe and says she is sorry, Mr. Subordinate. Please keep it a secret from Master. Carl asks what does she mean? Why does she want to keep it a secret? Faye says that she will get kicked out if he knows she was beaten. Carl says pardon. Faye says she will be forced out. Carl thinks what in the world is she saying? It cannot be. Carl grabs her wrist and sees bruises. He says damn it. He is sure she has more bruises in places he cannot see. Carl asks is that what he said? That she will be kicked out if people know she is being beaten. Faye nods and Carl asks why is he acting like this? That rotten little bastard. He threatened her and hid her where people would not see. Carl says to listen well. Miss Faye, there is only one thing that she must keep in mind. She must always obey her master. Is that butler her master? Faye shakes her head saying no. Carl asks does it make sense that a maid should keep secrets from her master? Faye says oh. Carl says anyway Miss Faye, she cannot allow people other than her master to lay their hands on her from now on. Understood. What that butler just did to her just now. Carl gets quiet and sighs saying to let them get her treated first. The scene cuts to Carl saying to the blonde that it was by pure coincidence that he found out. If he had not stopped by at that time, something bad would have happened. Since it has come to this, she should get rid of that butler. My liege. The blonde stays quiet and Carl says he thought it was simple bullying, but he crossed the line. Servants that do not know their place will always cause more trouble in the future. The blonde says yes, it seems that would be for the best. They will be returning to the Empire soon, and he will be doing things on his own after that, so he will not need a butler. The blonde says to tell that man he does not need to teach her anymore. Faye on the floor asks if they will be parting ways soon. She has not seen the butler for several days. She is hoping it is because he is busy with work, but if not, she guesses that means she will have to say goodbye to Master soon. Faye's heart is pumping and she says she wants to be closer to him. She knows that the day they separate will come soon, but if possible, she wants to stay with him longer. Faye gets close to him and realizes he is sweating. He is covered in it. Faye gets a flashback of her saying mommy and the mother gasping while trying to say her name. Faye grabs a towel and is about to rub the sweat off his face. The blonde's eyes open wide and he holds her hand. Faye flinches and the blonde asks what is the meaning of this as he squeezes her hand. Faye trembles and says she is sorry. She is sorry, Master. Faye thinks to herself, oh no, he must be very angry. She might have to leave him sooner than she thought. Faye sobs saying please forgive her. The blonde notices her hand having a towel and sighs saying damn it. He thinks to himself that she was only trying to wipe away the sweat. The blonde says to come here. He says that he must have surprised her. He promises he will not scare her like that again. Faye says that mommy, sweat, died. She was worried. Please. Faye thinks to herself that she hopes he knows how concerned she was. The blonde stays quiet and the scene cuts to Faye saying that she worked all day but there is still so much left. There is no need for a maid's job, but she is glad. Carl says these servants he is close with will take care of her wounds, Miss Faye. Faye says that if it were not for Mr. Subordinate she would never have been able to work by herself like this. Good people are surrounded by equally kind individuals. Master, Mr. Subordinate, and even Mr. Xenox. All of them are good people, but she as a maid should be observing and taking care of Master, but she has not done much yet. Instead of trying harder, All she did was selfishly wish to stay by his side longer. Faye grabs her bucket and thinks to herself that she is such an she needs to be thankful that he even saved her at all. She should not hope for more than that. She needs to do what she can right now. She will work hard so that Master. Two men say that she finally came out of that room. They grab her and say to hurry up. They shove her in a garden and say that they have waited forever for her. What could she have even been doing in there that whole time? Faye trembles and the men say it is obvious. Faye recognizes this voice. The butler says there is only one thing a useless girl who knows nothing would be doing. What else could there be? She asks why is the butler. Why? Faye is frozen. The butler says that he has been treated like a moron for losing his place. It is all because of this wench. She does not know how to speak, so just get rid of her for me. The men say they will make sure there are not any traces left behind. The other man says it will be easy to get rid of a girl from an enemy kingdom. She has managed to seduce the captain of the knights and the chief advisor too. They grab her and say she must be pretty skilled at it. Faye shivers and says to herself that she cannot allow people other than her master to lay their hands on her from now on. Faye bites his hand off. The man slaps her and she falls on the ground. Tears dropping, Faye says that she does not want to die. She has finally found someone precious. She has finally started to want something. She does not want to die. She wants to live. As Faye screams, horses start making noises and the Majesty turns his head. He thinks to himself that the horses have started making a fuss, yet nobody knows why. The animals are causing an uproar without reason. Surely not. The blonde notices the bucket dropped on the floor and he starts walking faster, making an angry face. He dashes and says that is enough. The men look back and startled say you're excellent. How did he? The blonde glares at him, and Faye says master. Faye says master and collapses in front of him. He tells her to not get up. He thinks to himself that Faye cries very easily. There are many basic things she needs to learn, and she is weak and irritating. However, the blonde grabs her and says he did not have any deeper meaning in keeping her around, nor has he given her any affection. So why is this weak and frail girl always on his mind? The blonde embraces her and grabs his sword and slaughters the men. The scene cuts to Faye opening her eyes and the blonde lifts his head up. Faye says master and starts sobbing. She asks why does she always show this man such wretched sides of herself. She did not want him to see any of that. The blonde tells her to come here and embraces her. He wipes her tears asking if she feels better. What happened today? Faye grabs his hand and says to please forgive her. Please do not throw her away. She does not want to be thrown out. She wants to stay with him. She does not want another master. The blonde asks why is she not blaming him. She would not have gotten hurt in the first place if it were not for him. Faye says but he hugged her. No one has ever hugged her like that. She does not have anyone but him master. The blonde says just because of that reason. Faye says she opened her heart to him because of a simple thing like that. What does she need to do master? She will do anything. The blonde grabs her and hugs her. He tells her to not follow strangers anymore. No, just do not trust anyone other than him. Even if someone says it is on his behalf. Unless he tells her it is fine. Do not trust anything they say, understand? Faye sobs and nods. The blonde asks himself when did he start feeling this way? When did he start to feel responsible for a girl that he had originally brought in to be used by him? Well, that is no longer important. The blonde lifts her up and puts her on the bed. Faye grabs him and the blonde says how truly strange. Watching her instinctively search for him, as if he is her salvation, makes him feel peaceful inside. It feels like the branches of a tree are growing within him, until it blocks off the sky from view. The blonde sits beside her and asks a good person. The scene cuts to the old man saying they have spent the past week marching, so it is about time to part ways, and for the other captains to return to their own territory. Will he be heading straight to the capital? The blonde says probably. Carl says does that mean he will be heading to Warren with Miss Faye? The blonde asks what does he mean? Was he not planning to do things on his own after they return my liege? The blonde looks away and says the plan has changed. Carl asks if he will be taking Miss Faye with him. It will be hard on her to travel all the way to the capital and then back to Warren. But sending her ahead is. The blonde has this frown look on his face. The old man says how passionate. Is he going to keep hold of her like that at the Imperial Palace as well? The blonde tells him to worry about himself first. He says that all he has to be concerned about is finding his way back, but he will be responsible for taking all the soldiers home. The old man says is he telling an old man like him to take care of all that? The blonde says that it will not be difficult, so do not worry. Carl and the blonde step out and the blonde says to Carl to take the soldiers that were recruited from Warren and return with them first. Carl says yes, my liege. When do they plan on returning? The blonde says that it will probably take at least a month. They will hold a celebration party for certain, and he needs to check on the situation within the palace. The blonde enters the room and sees Faye taking a nap beside the bed. The blonde shakes her and Faye says, "Oh, welcome back, master." She has finished reading everything. The blonde thinks to himself that it should not matter too much if he lets her sleep in the bed for one day. He tells her to sleep on the bed with him tonight. Faye says okay and reaches for him. He asks himself what is she? But then she was helping him trying to change. He almost thought she was trying to hug him. This is ridiculous. Why did he have such a silly thought? The blonde with a frown look says, why does he feel disappointed that she did not? Both of them are taking a nap and the blonde says the warmth of another person feels nice. Did sleeping beside other women feel like this? The blonde gets a flashback of Faye saying, but he hugged her, no one has hugged her like that. He asks himself, never being hugged by others. It is the same for him. The blonde holds her hand and embraces her. He thinks he understands what she meant now. That being hugged feels nice. Sleep a little longer, master's voice. Master's hand feels so warm. His hand. Faye's eyes open. The blonde says that he said it is fine to sleep more. Faye asks herself if she is dreaming. Why would master? The blonde says that he will be back after washing up, so rest until he calls for her. As he brushes her hair, Faye asks herself, why is she feeling like this? Her heart feels like it is being squeezed. It hurts because she feels like she cannot breathe properly. No, it is not pain, rather. She just wants to keep feeling more of whatever this is. The blonde calls her out asking for his towel. Faye says right. The blonde chose a horse instead of a carriage for better mobility. But since it is suddenly misbehaving, that must mean Faye is not feeling well. The blonde asks Faye if she is alright. Faye says yes, she is fine. The blonde thinks to himself that he knows it must be difficult for her, but it is admirable that she is trying to hide it. The blonde says that they will reach the border soon. Then they can rest for a day before they start moving again. Her ability to communicate with animals is intriguing, but there is not much use for it. She is going to fall ill if they continue on like this. He should not have left the carriage back there. Let us rest a moment, says the blonde. They tie the horse and Faye says she can get off by her own. The blonde tells her to not move and picks her up. He says that she will feel much better, just give him a moment. He massages her leg asking how is it. Faye says she feels embarrassed. The blonde presses her leg and she screams in pain. The blonde tells her to get some sleep before they head back to the road. Faye says okay. The scene cuts to the men saying, what is he saying, that Marquis Warren is on his way to the capital? The other man says yes, that is what he heard. He says why could he not die on the battlefield? Now he will be a bother to so many people. They cannot leave things like this. He may be a swordmaster, but he is still a human, is he not? The Duke Lightman thinks to himself. He says the previous Marquis, who has both the sword and shield of the imperial family, died. And his young heir is now returning from war as a hero for the Empire. He destroyed an alliance consisting of 10 nations and doubled the Empire's land. He will be a legendary hero. Once that boy comes back, the Emperor will be able to stand proudly again, and they will have to let go of the power they had for the past 10 years. They cannot allow that to happen. The Duke clenches his fist and says they should send assassin. He is coming here by himself and even left his knights behind. So there is a possibility of success. Do they not agree? The men say that if that fails, the Duke says that they can pretend they are insurgents from one of the fallen kingdoms. He has so many enemies that he is certain he will not suspect them. The scene cuts to a worker saying that if they had sent notice, he would have been better prepared for his arrival, my lord. He apologizes for such a lackluster greeting. The blonde says they are only going to spend the night, so they do not need to be so concerned. The worker says if there is anything he requires, please let him know. He will do everything in his power to get it for. The worker thinks to himself, the Marquis. No, he is going to be Duke Warren soon, is he not? Not only is he of a prestigious background, he is also handsome. The blonde thinks to himself something he needs. The worker thinks the noble society will be in an uproar once he reaches the capital. If he were to marry his daughter, he knows he could aim for a higher position than what he has now. The only problem is how to do it. The scene cuts to the blonde drinking wine and thinking to himself that it seems he has lost control of himself as soon as the war ended. How could he, just for a foolish girl so much younger than him? The door creaks open and he says, is this the Count's gift to him? The woman gets close to him and he pauses and tells her to get out. The woman says, pardon, but you're excellent. The blonde says, does she think it is normal for a Count's daughter to serve his guests at night like this? Get the hell out. The blonde says, how irritating. He opens the door to see Faye snoring and he picks her up saying he knows she is tired, but bear with it. They are going to stay somewhere else. Faye grabs him and he smiles saying, who is whose master?